So you want to learn to crochet? Lovely. All you need to get started is some yarn, a hook, a little pair of embroidery scissors, or any scissors would be useful, and some patience. Not too much, but enough to keep you going. The first thing is choose a yarn that you want to use. I love using my natural fibers, and Vinnie's Colors is a local yarn made in South Africa. It's a bamboo cotton blend. And when I use the colored ones, it's hand dyed. This itself is actually a natural one. To be able to find out what hook you need, if you look at any yarn that you pick up, it should have on the label instructions for you, showing you exactly what size you need. In this case, you can see that a 6mm hook is recommended. Personally, I've got quite a loose tension, so I know that I need to use a 5mm, but this will give you a good idea of what to start with. It'll also tell you things like, how big is the ball, how much do you need, how long is it, what kind of yarn it is, etc. In addition, you can also see your washing instructions. This is telling me that obviously I don't want to bleach it because it would take all the dye out if this was a dyed one. But you can cold water hand wash, you can use a cool iron, and as with anything that you create using crochet or knitting, it's a good idea to dry it flat so that it doesn't pull out of shape. You will also find on the ball of yarn the particular color. In this case, I told you it is a natural, and there's often a code. The lot number is also quite important to be aware of, because especially if you're making a large garment like a blanket, you don't want to get colors from different lots. So even if the dye color is exactly the same, the lot tells you when it was made. And there are very slight differences sometimes between one day's dyeing and another's, and therefore the different lots might be a slightly different shade. I've done that before, where I made a blanket and without realizing I used yarn from 2 different dye lots, and I couldn't understand why half the blanket was slightly lighter than the other half. Me being me, of course, I've pulled it all out and I'm going to start again. But I don't think you really want to do that, especially not when you're learning. When you're starting out, obviously you'll probably only need one ball of yarn just to get you going, but I just thought that information would be quite useful for you to be able to understand how to actually use your yarn. You can see here's my 5mm hook that I'm going to use, and the first thing that you want to do is start working with your yarn. You can see over here, in fact, your yarn is generally going to have 2 ends. You've got one end, in this case the one that comes from the outside, and I can see that because it winds around over there. I generally like to just get rid of that, wind it around and leave it on the outside, and then actually pull a piece of yarn from the inside. This is simply because then I don't have the ball rolling around all over the place and causing trouble, but if you prefer, by all means use the one from the outside instead. To find the piece from the inside, the easiest is either you put your fingers on both sides and you try and find the bit most in the middle, and then you just grab it and pull it out. Another trick that you can do is you can actually just put your hook into the middle and pull, and then generally you will get something that is near the middle, and there's my middle end, as you can see. The very first thing that you need to learn to be able to do, apart from untangling any yarn farts, as we call them, from the middle of the ball of yarn, is you need to be able to do a slip knot. This is just the original starting point for both crochet and knitting. Hold your yarn in 2 hands, fold it over like that. You can see I've just put my right over my left, and then put your hook through the loop, or your fingers, and catch the longer thread. And once you've done that, you just pull it tight, and now you have what's known as a slip knot. If I pull the longer piece, do you see that it now makes my slip knot smaller? And if I do need to actually make it bigger again, hold the shorter piece and pull, and you can see you can actually adjust the size of the stitch as you need to. That is going to be your starting point. Now you're all set to get started.